guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle with Damn Fancy Creations. I hope that everybody had a great Christmas. I hope you are all having a great start to the new year. So the next holiday we have coming up is Valentine's Day, and I went ahead and got a jump start on Valentine's Day tumblers this year. So I figured it was the perfect time to do a tutorial on my Valentine's Day gnome tumbler. He turned out super cute. I love making these gnome cups. I am planning an entire line of gnome tumblers for different holidays, different seasons. I think they turn out super, super cute. I also hope you guys watch this video all the way through. I know several of y'all have already expressed that you think this is too advanced or too difficult for you guys, and I promise that it's not. Yes, it may take a little bit more time with attaching the clay to the tumbler. Yes, you might have to watch how the epoxy pools in certain spots, but it's not as hard as I think some of you are thinking it is. So please watch the video all the way through and be confident that you can do this as well. So if you guys are ready to see how I make these gnome tumblers, let's get started. So we always want to start with a prepped tumbler. Then you're going to need some oven baked clay. I like the Primo Sculpey. And you're basically going to break off a large chunk and knead it so it's a little bit easier to work with. So I place my nose first just so I know where my hat is going to go. And then you're basically going to roll out a long line of the clay. And you're going to form that line of clay all the way around the cup in the shape that you want your hat to be. And I am not making this clay line flat to the cup. I am just lightly pressing it on the cup so it adheres to the tumbler. Because if it's too flat, you won't be able to really tell that there is a hat line. But you don't want it too thick either. So once your line of clay goes all the way around the cup, we're just going to smooth it out, make sure it's even how we want it, the shape is how we want it, all that good stuff. And once we get it the shape that we want it and smoothed, you're basically going to pinch the top part of this line onto the tumbler. So this will help when we go to bake it. It will help the clay stick to the tumbler and not fall off. And I will go ahead and tell you guys that on this particular cup, I did spray paint it white before I added the clay and before I baked it. But with all of my other gnome cups or any other cup that has clay on it, I will actually sand the cup, add the clay, bake it, and then spray paint it white because I don't want to bake those spray paint fumes in the oven that I cook with. This was just something out of habit. I'm always spray painting all of my cups white no matter what, and I just didn't even think about that before I did this cup. So I would advise not to bake spray painted cups in the oven that you cook with. If you want something a different color, you can always go back later and paint it with acrylic paint or paint pens, things like that. So once we have our hat line smoothed all the way around the tumbler, I really wanted mine to have a little droopy hat. So I basically just made a long triangle and started with the wider part up top and just kind of smashed it onto my tumbler and then kind of formed it how I wanted. I think the little gnomes with the droopy hats are so cute, so I wanted my little gnome to have a hat like that. And then the last piece that we are going to add before we bake this guy is the little ball for the hat. So I'm just going to take another little piece of clay, roll it into a little ball, and smush it on to the end of that hat. And once all of our clay pieces are on our tumbler, you are ready to bake it. You want to start with a cool oven. You want to put your tumbler in there on a cookie sheet or baking pan. Heat the oven to 220 degrees and let your tumbler bake for about 20 minutes. Then turn the oven off, and then when it is completely cool, you can take the tumbler out. Don't grab it when it's hot because you will burn yourself. And once the tumbler has cooled completely and the clay is baked on, we are ready to glitter our little gnome. So now that our clay is baked, the tumbler is cool, we are ready to glitter. So I just kind of sketched out his beard with a pencil. It doesn't need to be exact since we're going to go back and glitter it later. This is just kind of a rough guesstimate on where I want it. So I picked gray and a pink and red mix glitter for this little guy. And I am actually applying my glitter with acrylic paint. I didn't want to paint everything, let it dry, or spray paint everything. So I just went with red acrylic paint. I know you guys have seen me do this in a few of my other videos. I really hate using Mod Podge, so I just decided to use paint, and it works out pretty well. So I'm really just painting the entire section red first because this is where all that glitter is going to go, just to give the base a good coverage of the color so white isn't going to be showing through. And then I am just going back and wiping off any big globs that I see. And make sure you get underneath his little hat around the brim. And working with acrylic paint versus Mod Podge is kind of similar. Mod Podge, you can't ever really tell if it has Mod Podge on it or not because it's white or clear. This way, with the acrylic paint, I can see where exactly I'm putting it, or if I missed a spot and need to go back and touch it up. And then I will just sprinkle on my glitter. I did paint a pretty big section this first time, so I will have to go back and touch up some spots. I usually don't work in quite so big of an area. I usually do about, 2 or 3 inches at a time, but I just wanted to go ahead and get the color on his hat. So just go touch up any little spots that you may have missed. And the good thing about acrylic paint is that it does dry pretty quickly, so you are not having to wait overnight or longer. Obviously, if you do huge globs of paint, it may take a little while to dry, but generally it does dry pretty quickly. So now that we are done with the hat, we are going to go in and do his little coat. So same as last time, I am just going to use acrylic paint and basically paint the tumbler black and sprinkle some glitter on. I am being a little bit more careful this time around because I don't want to get black all over the hat, which we just did. And I really like this gray. It's like a gray blue. I believe it's called Storm Chaser from Glitzy City. So you guys can see if I work in a little bit smaller sections, then I don't need to go back and touch up as much as I did on the hat. So I'm just being careful around his little beard. The beard will be white, so I don't want to get any black in that area just because it might be a little bit hard to cover up. And in this part, you do want to get your bottoms as well. And then we are going to do his beard and the little ball of the hat. So same thing as all the other times, we're just going to use white acrylic paint and sprinkle some white glitter onto the paint. And after this paint dries, I will epoxy probably 2 times, and then you can add his nose, and I attach it with liquid fusion glue. You can use whatever glue you want to attach it with because it will be epoxied over as well. During that step, I also add the little heart sprinkles on his hat, which is what we are going to do next. So after this is dry, we're going to epoxy 2 more times and then come back and do the little heart sprinkles on his hat and attach his nose. So this part is going to be really sped up because it took me forever to attach all these little hearts on there. So you guys can tell that he has been epoxied a couple times and sanded really well. And then I basically just dump out the heart sprinkles from CC DIY and I just attach them with a small dot of glue. And I just went all the way around the hat like this. And I learned from experience that wait until the very end to attach your nose because he will not stay on. So I added all the hearts, and once they were attached really well, then I added a small dab of glue and attached the nose. And I laid him flat so that the nose would dry and not slide down the tumbler like he did when I was trying to attach the hearts on. But once the nose and the hearts are all dry, you can epoxy a couple more times. It will need a few layers of epoxy because this is definitely a 3D tumbler and you want to make sure that everything is attached and covered really, really well. And I did not film me making his little hands or his hearts because that was a last minute decision and I honestly did not know how it was going to turn out. I can definitely do a tutorial on that at a later date, but as of right now, I do not have that. But this is basically it for this tumbler. Like I told you guys, it may be a few extra steps, but it is not super difficult, and I'm sure that you guys can make them just as cute as this little guy, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with.